What up, everybody? This is Chase, and welcome back to the Wellness Center podcast. I am so grateful that you took your time to tune in with me today to listen to another amazing story of resilience. Guys, I cannot begin to describe how excited I am for my guest today. She is a freaking rock star. Seriously, she has already come in and and she's going to share some amazing lessons. She is going to share some amazing stories, some amazing skills, and she is really just a powerhouse for good, a true lioness when I think about it. Just freaking awesome. So as you guys are listening to this episode today, please make sure to be thinking about someone that you know could benefit from this episode. And I invite you to share it with them. I invite you to make that personal touch with them just to let them know that you care. So without further ado, I am so excited to introduce my guest. So my guest, she is an author of a book called The Renewal of You, which focuses on finding courage and awareness to live your true life. She has 15 years experience as a hairstylist and salon owner. She is also the black sheep of her family. She has an unconventional coaching style because of all of those things. She has life experiences, including divorce and step parenting. Because of all of those things, she also has a sensitivity to emotions and energies. She's a personal coach with a very authentic style. And most importantly, she's a mountain lover, a nature enthusiast. She's a wife, she's a mother, and she's a lioness warrior, daughter of God. So without further ado, the silent drum roll comes in and we have Erika Beeson on the show. Erika, how are you doing today?
I am doing so good. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you. I'm honored to be on your show today.
Hey, thank you so much, Erika. I am super honored that you are here as well. As a fellow Utahn, I am just stoked about the conversation that we are going to have. I think Utah needs all of the mental health help that it can possibly get.
Absolutely. Amen.
Yeah. So, Erika, just by way of introduction, can you please give us some cookie cutter answers as to who you are so we can all get to know you a little bit better?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, the intro you gave me was amazing, and it feels a little more than I deserve, but I'm super excited about the things you had to say. And yes, I am a mother to a 14-year-old daughter and a couple of fur babies because I'm an animal lover at heart as well. But yeah, born and raised in Utah, moved around a little bit, did a short stint in Texas. That state's way too flat for my liking. So we're back here in Utah where the gorgeous mountains are. I am kind of a Jane of all trades, I guess you could say. I have worked in quite a few different industries. I have a tendency to really be a startup junkie. And I think the reason why is because I am so invested in the growth and development of all things, whether it's a business, whether it's personal development, whether it's my daughter or my bonus children, or you know, gardening. I love gardening, like just the growth and development of things and understanding like what environment needs to be there for something to grow in the most optimal way is honestly something is like an overarching theme of my whole life. And I really think that's kind of where all these different super random experiences and careers that I've had in my life have kind of really made me this well-rounded unique perspective holding being. And that's kind of, I guess, where the older you get, the more you get this perspective of what you really want to do. And that's kind of brought me to where I am now and the journey that I'm on now. So
Well, that's amazing, Erika. Thank you so much for taking the time to introduce yourself. That's really cool. I'm curious, where this desire for the growth of everything in your life, do you know, like, if you can look back, where did that stem from?
it's super interesting when I think back in like into my childhood. So I'm the youngest of three kids, right? And I've always just had this like nurturing side. And I think it probably started mostly with like animals because I didn't have like younger siblings to nurture. And maybe that's why I love to nurture things is because I didn't have younger siblings. No, I'm just kidding. I did do a lot of babysitting, but this nurturing piece of me, whether that's nature versus nurture, whether I was like kind of born with that or, I watched other people around me. Um, and maybe here's some polarity. So my mother was a school teacher, and I was always so impressed with how much she poured into her students, so there's that nurturing example I'm getting from her. And then my father is Dr. Green Thumb, where he is just like he is a miracle worker with like landscaping and plants, and he got that from his father. And, so I feel like I kind of have these two different amazing examples in my life that maybe helped to develop that inside of me. But, as I got older, I didn't really understand like what that was doing for me as far as my career choices or my schooling choices and things like that. But when I think about well, hindsight's 2020, right? We can look back and kind of see the path that we followed. Always and forever, I've been looking for ways to help people feel better about themselves, or by through being a hairstylist, right? I was helping people feel better, but after a while, I realized, have you ever heard people say that your hairstylist is also your therapist, your therapist?
100%. 100%.
Absolutely. So that's where my polarity kind of shifted in that, I was helping people feel great about their physical, but I realized that was so temporal and so surface level. So the experience that I had with these clients over years and years and years, getting to hear their story and their struggles, because they sit in that chair and they just open up, right? It gave me a whole different perspective of how people deal with things and what they're going through. And I think it was just even more fuel to my fire of this, like, let me help them. Like, I want to help. And I had my own personal struggles that were really difficult to navigate because I didn't know what I didn't know. So I think as soon as I found those tools, that's where I wanted to like open up the floodgates for everybody else. Sorry, that kind of went on a long story, but hopefully you know where I'm going.
Yeah, no, I love it. And that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. That's cool. You've lived such an amazing life, is from what it sounds like so far, where you've mentioned some struggles, you've mentioned some resilience there. I would love to go into my questions now, because I think this you've already brought me to a perfect segue. So, Erika, take us back to a young Erika Beeson. When were some of the first times that you noticed you were struggling with your mental health?
Mhm. Well, when I was really young, like it just in my neighborhood, I don't know that I necessarily felt like I was struggling with my mental health, but I did feel like I was just a little bit different. And I could never put my finger on why it was. And maybe it's because I wanted to be different, or maybe I just felt like I wasn't quite the same as like the other girls or the other friends in the neighborhood. Not that they shunned me or anything. I had an awesome neighborhood growing up. Like we had a tight group of friends in that neighborhood, but I kind of just always felt a little bit different. Like maybe my perspectives were different. And then as I got a little bit older, I have a lot of friends that say, "Oh, I hated junior high," or "I hated high school. It was horrible." I don't have any of that. I had a great experience in junior high. Sure, you have your little friend tiffs or whatever, your friend groups change. I tried out for the high school soccer team. I didn't make it. All my friends did, but these weren't things that made me feel like I was struggling with my mental health at all. It was just, I think, standard growing up. But one of the things that hit me really hard was shortly after my parents divorced when I was about, let's see, 18. I was 18, 17 or 18 when they divorced. And I had no idea how to handle it. I didn't know like how to cope with the big feelings I was experiencing, even though I was like kind of an adult. Legally, you're an adult in your brain, you're in your emotions, you're not really, right?
Right.
But I started coping in rebellious ways. I decided that I was going to go against all the rules and I was going to, you know, do XYZ. I jumped kind of off the deep end for a little while, messing around with, drinking and some things. And I think it was when I first started to feel like I didn't really have anybody to talk to about it, that my mental health started to struggle, because I certainly couldn't talk to my parents about what I was going through because of some of the choices I had made. And I had kind of distanced myself from some of my religious upbringing. I didn't feel like that was a safe place to go. I had my best friends, but I also, I think, kind of somehow along the way growing up, I developed this whole like strong girl, stuff it, don't talk about it mentality. So I just was like, nope, I'm strong. I'm gonna figure it out myself. Like I can do it myself. And it really started to wear on me to the point where I just sort of felt like numb going through life a little bit. So that's probably the first time I really felt some mental health struggles.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, I can imagine that was a really challenging time for you. So thank you for being vulnerable and willing to share. I think that's really powerful to do that. I would love to ask you a couple of questions about your story. So you talk about having this rock star neighborhood with all the great friends, but you thought differently than the other girls. What did that look like for you as a young girl? Looking back with 2020 hindsight.
Gosh, there as much as I can offer, like it's kind of hard for me to go back to that time. I don't know, it's really, I'll be honest, it's really hard for me to put my finger on because there was never any, I mean, little girls, Sally hurt my feelings or whatever. We're not talking for 3 days, but
Right.
I just always felt like maybe, well, okay. So growing up in a super religious community, right? It was really tight knit. And I never felt as invested in the teachings or as invested in that like thought process or way of life growing up. So
Okay.
I kind of felt like maybe I wasn't like rising to the same bar or level as them. So
Okay.
maybe it wasn't that I thought different. Maybe it was a little bit of like I'm not as worthy as them. I don't
Hmm.
It's hard for me to go back that far and look, but
Yeah.
it could be a bunch of different things, but I just remember feeling like they were all a little bit better than me. Not that they ever acted that way or made me feel that way. It was all inside of me.
Right.
But
That internal story. It-
yeah,
and
yeah,
and that makes so much sense. And that right there, honestly, was a nugget of truth and a nugget of gold. So thank you for being willing to share it. I know that there are going to be people listening that are going to like they're going to resonate with that and say, I felt that too. So, that you just provided hope there, Erica. Thank you so much. And man, going feeling numb, like what and with the divorce and everything, man, that I can't even imagine how hard that was for an 18-year-old. I remember what I was like when I was 18 and I was not in a space to handle any big heavy emotions. So yeah, I would love to know more about those big heavy feelings. What were the stories you were telling yourself as your parents were going through this divorce?
yeah. And it's super tricky. So I mentioned I was the youngest of three kids, right?
Mhm.
So when my parents did split up, my sister had gotten married and moved to California, and for much of that time, my brother was actually on an internship in Japan. And so I was kind of home alone to deal with the fallout a little bit. And it's just big emotions. You're not really sure because I wasn't like a 7-year-old where things are being handled a little bit differently. And this is super, tender to my heart as well because my daughter, her father and I went through a divorce when she was really young, and she's lived the life of divorced parents her whole existence that she can remember.
Mhm.
And so, when we think about when I think about what I went through at my age is very different than what she's gone through. But I just felt so like isolated with it all for some reason. And I was also away at college when it happened. I kind of think my parents, waited until everyone was out of the house before they cut ties. But
Yeah.
it was weird because it was like all these things were happening, and I was over here at college, which was only like 30 minutes away. I was down in Provo. I was at UVSC, well, which isn't even UVSC anymore. Anyways, and I would come home and like things would be gone. Like some of my dad's things would be gone, or I'd come home and like furniture was different, or like come home and like, so it felt super like this home that I had known my whole life. We didn't move my whole childhood. We were in the same house. So I felt like this whole like foundation of where I was at my whole life was like all of a sudden crumbling and shaking and moving, even though I had moved out. So it was kind of like, well, what if I decide to come home? Like, what does that look like if I move home? So all these things that you kind of like envision as a future, the rug gets pulled out from underneath you. And the same thing happened when I got divorced. I had realized that there were some things going on in my marriage that I wasn't okay with. And I was like, you know what, we tried for a long time to work it out and it didn't work. And when I realized things were done, felt like the rug got pulled out from underneath me, right? Because you have this vision of like, this is what my life's going to be. And then all of a sudden it's like blank screen, plot twist, recreate the whole thing. And that feels really overwhelming when you've had this like idea of what the future looks like for a really long time. And I think that feeling, like someone like not pushed you off a cliff, but like pushed you into this high momentum acceleration of good luck, find your new life. It's a lot.
That is. And just to speak to that, humans are creatures of habit. right? We have our paradigms and then we spend our whole life looking for those paradigms. And when that paradigm is essentially reset, whether you want it to or not, that's hard to find and set new paradigms. There's a lot of discomfort there. So no,
Mhm.
thank you for sharing all of that. I really appreciate that. It's true. It is really hard. That is really, really hard. And I got one more question for you before we head on into my second question. And it was kind of the tough girl mentality you talked about where you were like, I don't talk about things. I'm tough. I got this. I would love to know a little bit more about how that was developed in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, it's the whole situation of like when we know better, we do better, right? I didn't know how to express my feelings when I was young. I didn't figure that out. And I think a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, my parents didn't teach me how to express my feelings." And there might be a small piece of that, to the equation, but I really think it's a generational thing, right? Like if my parents didn't, suck it up and go, finish your chores or whatever, right? Like back in the day that it was a gruffer, tougher time then. And I don't think it was until, more recent years that this has become something that we realize is such a huge impact on our mental health. To discuss that. And boy, I tell you, like when I did need to cry, a shoulder to cry on, or I did want to talk it out, my parents were 100% there for me, but I didn't understand the importance of letting it out to somebody else instead of just like I remember crying into my pillow like a lot, right? And that was like because I didn't want anyone to hear that I was sad, or maybe I didn't want anyone to know that they'd hurt my feelings. And I don't know exactly where that I'm so tough, you're not gonna break me type of mentality came from. But I will tell you this, it is my mission to make sure that, my daughter and my bonus kids, where they allow me to help them understand how important it is and that how their feelings deserve to be heard, that they are worth so much that yes, you should express how you feel. And yes, if that person hurt your feelings, you let them know. And no matter what you're feeling, your feelings are valid. And the other person doesn't have to agree with it, but they need to at least like respect it, right? There's a difference there. And it's been such a huge polar shift for me, and I'm still a little stubborn about it. Like that's a tricky thing where I'm still sometimes I'll still be like, I don't want to talk about it. Like I'm not going to talk about it or but eventually I will.
And that's the journey of recovery right there. It's just that progressive victory. So good on you. And thank you for sharing that nugget of gold about the lessons you're trying to teach your kids. If for those listening, go back and listen to that a couple more times and really let that sink and soak in. That Erika just shared with you one of the most valuable things, that your emotions are okay, that they need to be heard, and they can be respected. And that right there is that is true recovery right there. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Erika. I love it. So let's go into the second question. I know you so you get to this point in your life where you have this paradigm of what you're thinking and you get the reset button. You are a blank page, and that leads perfectly again into my next question, which is the heroine's journey. And for my listeners who don't know what the hero or heroine's journey is, it's essentially an extreme moment or pivotal trial that someone has to go through where they ultimately have to take a look at themselves and come out the other side better. So, Erika, please describe for us in the audience the hero's journey or heroine's journey you had to go through.
Would you like V1, 2, or 3?
Whichever one you feel most comfortable sharing.
Gosh, it's interesting. I feel like I've kind of had a clean slate or, an opportunity to take a new road sort of three different times in my life. And the first two times I didn't really do a great job of recreating a healthy path forward. So let's skip those two and we'll go to V3.
Sorry, and before we start the V3, I just want to point out how important that is. That guys, Erika didn't get it right the first two times. And that's okay. That's the cool part of the hero's journey is that there are going to be bumps and hiccups in the road. But seriously, let's start with V3. Let's hear it.
Absolutely. So, and honestly, this is kind of where the beginning of this moment where I sort of just had this huge realization. probably seems really minimal in comparison to V1 and V2. So, okay, V1, let's just do a small recap just to show the polarity here. Married super young, found out that my first husband was living like a complete double life on me, right? So obviously that ended quickly. That was a huge rug pulled out from underneath me, right? Like I didn't even know what to do. I went way off the deep end, you know, way out there. Brought it back, met my daughter's father. We got married, had her, realized some things were rough. It wasn't going to work out. That was V2, right? Got the rug pulled out from underneath me. I did a little bit better job that time because obviously I had my daughter to keep me grounded, right? Um, but I still don't feel like I took the time to actually heal properly and figure out who I was. I was so focused on making sure she was okay, which is my job as her mother. But in all of that, I ended up kind of continuing on this path of losing myself, right? So bringing us to V3, there was one day specifically, and my book outlines this story because it was so pivotal for me, even though for some people it's going to seem so small. I had kind of reached this like patience max, and I was like feeling all the feels, and I was angry, and I don't even remember what she did, but my daughter did something. And keep in mind, she was maybe like 9 at this age, 10, something like that. She'd done something, and I kind of flipped my lid, and I was impatient with her. I raised my voice with her, and it was not pretty. And I turned around out of her room and I walked away, and I could hear her start to cry. I had broken her spirit. Ooh, sorry, this one's gonna get me for a second.
No, it's okay.
Gosh, usually I can tell this story without getting emotional. Something must be up today. Thank you for bringing that safe space, Chase.
Of course. You feel everything you need to feel. You take your time.
She's just so precious, and our relationship is so strong. So I think maybe revisiting that right now is just a little tender, but it's okay. This is what it's about, right?
That's exactly what it's about.
So yeah, I walked away from her room hearing her cries of just this poor broken spirit of this precious girl, and I went into my room and I lost it. I just started like bawling, right? I was like full on ugly crying in the corner, just letting it all out. And I needed a tissue pretty badly, right? So I went into the restroom that was attached to my bedroom, and I grabbed a tissue, and I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. And I think for the first time, it hit me so hard that I didn't really understand who I was looking at. Like I felt like I had lost myself, or I had gotten so far away from my core values and my connection with myself that I didn't even really recognize who I was looking at, because the person that I am at my core would not have just broken that poor girl's spirit like that. And that was a moment where I almost headed into like panic. Like I almost felt like I was having a panic attack. I felt like I had a weight on my chest. I couldn't breathe. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I got to get out of here. And something that a previous mentor had taught me was that, anytime you feel that feeling, change your environment quickly, like step outside, get fresh air, change something so that you have a physical adjustment. It kind of helps. So I just like grabbed my shoes and grabbed my coat, and I was like, I'm going for a walk. And I walked out the door. And it was that moment where I realized like I needed to rewind the tape. I needed to reverse down the road that I had been going on and like refigure some stuff out, because I felt like what I had built in my life at that time was built on a pretty crumbly foundation, and it was not going to work out long term. And that's when I just decided I needed to like strip all these layers of whatever I had built up to protect me from all the things that had hurt me in the past, had created this like shell of a human. And I wasn't connecting with my true self anymore. And that was like the major catalyst right there.
That is a huge moment. I know you say that it was so minor in comparison to the others, but to look at yourself and realize you don't know who you're seeing in the mirror, that's big. That's a really big and powerful moment. And I'm so grateful that gift was given to you in that moment. As hard as that is to say, and as hard as it is to see it as a gift, it really was. So I would love from this point, right? It's time to make change, and you know that. So again, this leads perfectly into the next question, the coping skills. So
Mhm.
after that moment, what coping skills did you develop and how have they evolved over time?
Gosh, such a good question. And this is one of my favorite things. So I think, growing up, not really understanding how to express my feelings appropriately equals not knowing how to deal with my feelings very well, other than like to go be alone and cry, right? Um, is not like the best way to do it. And, growing up, I felt like I, could talk to my parents about hard things, but like when I came to like me breaking down or whatever, I didn't want to do that in front of people. And when the rug got pulled out V1, I did not go seek help. I didn't go to a counselor. I didn't go talk to any professionals. I just was like, I'm going to handle this myself. Like, I got this. It's fine. I'll just drink myself into oblivion. It's fine. Right.
I'm tough. I got this.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm not going to let this define me. I got this, even though we all kind of can probably see the writing on the wall. And the unfortunate thing is that I ended up in V2 with almost the exact same type of person. And at that point, when I realized things were struggling, we went to go see a counselor and we went to go get help. And not long after we started, my spouse at the time didn't want to go anymore, but I continued to go because I was like, this is help. I feel like this is helping me. Like I'm getting some strategies, I'm getting some help. And just having an unbiased party to talk to, a third party to talk to was a great, I don't even know if I would call it a coping skill, but a survival strategy for me. Super, super helpful. And I relied on that for a really long time. And it helped me get through a lot of really hard times. But I do feel like those strategies and that methodology is great for survival mode. I wanted to get out of survival mode. I needed to get into a thriving mode, a growth mode. I needed to move beyond it. And I think talk therapy is great for a lot of people long term, but I felt like I had kind of hit my cap with it. My counselor was amazing. I'll love her forever. We're still in touch. She's fantastic. But I just personally needed something different at that time. But I didn't know what I needed. So I just started looking around. I started looking at different people and like different mentors, different health practitioners, different healers to see what made sense to me. And I think we can all agree there's a whole lot of stuff out there. And a lot of it's not amazing. Some of it is, right? And I think that's where we kind of have to follow our intuition and really ask ourselves, who are we following? Who are we listening to? Because I can be standing at the base of a mountain range and I can point up to the top of a mountain and say, I want to go there. And someone can stand in front of me and said, oh, you want to go there? I can take you there. Cool. But then they lead me to the top of a different mountain. Like you have to make sure that the who you're following is really like understanding where you're trying to go and what you want to do. Otherwise, you're going to be off in some other place you don't really want to be. And my point with saying that is that we have so much information at our fingertips right now with all these different coaches, healers, you name it online, right? Just use your intuition, right? Follow who resonates with you. And I say that just because I got lucky and I was not really well connected to my intuition or my inner like knowledge at the time that I selected some of these mentors, but they were amazing. And they actually helped me reconnect with that. So a lot of my coping skills that I developed, not developed, but that I learned and that I still hold on to today are things like this. Every once in a while, do a 1 week detox from all inputs. And what I mean by that is TV, music with lyrics, get off social media, get off podcasts. Sorry, yes, I'm saying it, but just take a week to like do an input inventory. And if anything is swaying your inner compass one way or the other, you got to set that aside from you. And there's an entire chapter in my book about this because it's so important. You have your needle of your own inner compass. And if something is pulling it off of the course that you're meant to be on, then you're going to end up where you don't want to be. So you have to listen to yourself. So cutting out those things, meditation was a huge one for me because it allowed me to actually listen to myself. And pro tip for anyone that is just starting out with meditation, You don't have to learn to quiet your mind first. Your mind will quiet when it's ready. Just keep trying. It will happen. Okay. Because I always thought that had to come first. So yeah, meditation, journaling, and then just making sure to like tune out some of those inputs every once in a while so that you can actually listen to yourself because we are like fed with it all the time.
Such amazing coping skills. It's last year I did a 10-day food fast, and yeah, no food for 10 days because I wanted to focus on like my mental health and my spirituality and connecting there. And a part of that 10-day food fast was I was not going to look at any social media whatsoever. Nothing, no news outlets, no Facebook, no Instagram, nothing. And that was in January of last year. And I still haven't gotten back onto news outlets or social media. And oh, the peace that you can find from not having all of those inputs in your life is great. Like I can't tell you how many times people would be like, "Did you hear about that new mass shooting?" And it's like, just now, and wouldn't have affected me if I wouldn't have known. And not that it's unimportant to be thoughtful towards those people, but if it doesn't actually affect you in your life, why are you bringing on that negative energy, right? That sadness.
Yep, I absolutely agree. And I think it's what's that adage that everyone uses, like where your focus goes or where your attention goes, your focus grows, or something like that. I'm butchering it, but you get the idea, right? If you're focusing on all these negative things, then that's all you're going to see, that's all you're going to feel. And that energy does affect you greatly, actually.
Yeah, it changes your whole paradigm of life. Yeah, such
100%.
amazing coping skills. Thank you so much. And I love that that was cool about meditation. I didn't know that you had that quieting the mind comes later. I was of the same belief for a while that it's like you quiet your mind and then you're meditating. So that's cool. That's cool. And so for those people that are just starting to get into meditation and they can't quiet their mind, what is that going to look like for them?
Ooh, because yeah, that was me. Absolutely, that was me. I have 8,000 tabs going all the time in this brain of mine. So honestly, I would get so frustrated when I would sit down to meditate and I would just have like all these thoughts from the day like happening. So one thing that's helpful is you could try a guided meditation. There's Insight Timer is a free app that I really like. Yep, I like that one. But then after a while, I would still catch myself kind of like not listening and thinking about something else. And then I would get frustrated. It's fine. All you have to do is just bring your awareness back to what they're saying. And if you choose to not do a guided meditation, I don't do them anymore because I've kind of figured it out. But anytime my brain like I can catch myself thinking about what I need to do tomorrow or an appointment later, the most important thing to me is just focus on your breathing. If you bring it back to your breath, that brings your awareness back into your body, which brings your thoughts back to what you're feeling and, or focus like I can feel my ankles touching the carpet or I can feel the soles of my feet on the ground. Like just focus on just really, it's just bringing that awareness back to your body, back to that present state. Because really, if you can tap into that, even if you can just learn to tap into it a little bit, it will help you be so much more present in your life and so much more intentional with honestly almost every action in your day.
I 100% agree with you. There was a book I read called The Things That You Can See Only When You Slow Down, and it talks about the science behind meditation. And it talked about how the average person could only focus for about 48% of their day in a work week, or, and if they meditated for 30 minutes in a day, which I know is a lot for a lot of new people meditating, but if you can work your way up to that point of 30 minutes, the average person after meditating for 30 minutes could focus upwards of 78% of their day and stay focused.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And some advice that I'd love to input and share with that is start with 1 minute. You can do anything for a minute, right? 60 seconds is not a long time to focus on your in breath and your out breath.
Absolutely. It's all about just like stepping stones, right?
Right.
Stepping
Yeah,
stones.
absolutely. So Erica, thank you so much for everything you've shared. There have been some moments as I've listened to you and I'm just like, wow, this woman is so powerful. Like she has such an amazing story. So I'm so grateful that you came on. So looking back through everything you've been through, right? Everything growing up, the divorce, versions 1, 2, and 3. Looking back at all of it, what can you appreciate about what you've been through?
It's a little there's kind of two parts to this answer. So the first one is just I do fully believe like everything you go through, you are meant to go through so that A, you become a stronger person, but B, you can help someone else through it. And sometimes when you're in the mess of it, that's really hard because there's a lot of woe is me, like, why is this happening to me? This isn't fair. Screw this. I hate this. Why does the universe hate me? All these things, right? But turning your pain into your power really is an incredible thing. I think one of the things that set me the most free in being able to look back in gratitude was what I learned through my NLP training, which is neuro linguistic programming training. I went through a master coach training just last year, and it really taught me the methodologies that allow us to change that's just how I am, or that's just how my mind works. You talked a lot about, how our mind works and changing our neural pathways and these things. And I get so many clients that are stuck in, well, I don't know, that's just how I've always been. And they like are stuck in this like satiation state of like, that's just how I am. And that's not the case, because that's putting that glass ceiling on your growth and your development and your ability to like level up your life. And when I was able to not only have gratitude for just what those experiences built in me, even though there was still a small part of me that felt like they defined me, right? Because, there's some stigmas around certain things, but being able to actually let go of those things and change the way my thoughts, and my emotions in my mind and in my nervous system adjust to equal out a different behavior was critical for me. And so the gratitude plus the like actual changing of some of those behaviors and those thought processes have absolutely like set me on this whole different trajectory in my life.
That is amazing. Thank you so much. That is so true and so powerful, and I love that. I can tell that that is a huge driving force in your life now. So, for those just getting into the realm of mental health, and for those just, stumbling upon this podcast, what advice do you have for those people?
Oh my goodness. Sometimes it's like the first step is just understanding, right? Like the small signs that maybe you're having a hard time, whether it's you struggle to speak about your feelings, you don't feel like getting out of bed, you don't feel like doing the things you normally want to do. Like even just little things, or your patience is low. There's very small things that can indicate, you're kind of headed down that path of struggle. The biggest thing to me is just really get tuned in with yourself. And if you're unsure what those practices look like, talk to somebody that you can kind of see is emulating these things, or just find those beginning state practices. And truthfully, that's part of, I included some of those in my book just to help people get that like tip of the iceberg of starting to understand like the points of gratitude in the day, the points of reconnecting with yourself, how to tune out the garbage, how to maybe even cut ties with people in your life that might be keeping you kind of in an unhealthy state emotionally, because not everyone is healthy for us. But yeah, I think just seeking out those resources and not being afraid to try something different. We have to get uncomfortable to be able to move forward.
I love that. And thank you so much for the advice that you gave others. I know I personally needed that advice. Let's talk about your book now, Erika. Let's tell me kind of about like what brought you to the point that you wanted to write a book, what went into writing the book, what it's all about. Yeah, let's talk about it.
It's kind of a funny story, and I giggle every time I tell it. I never, ever, ever, ever was like, I want to be an author. That was never a thing for me. But through my healing journey, I found a lot of, well, when I was a kid, I used to write a lot of poetry. So I've always liked writing. I loved my creative writing classes. Like I've always loved writing, but I never had an aspiration to write a book. So through my healing journey, I found a lot of release and a lot of benefit in processing through writing. And it was one fall, I was playing on my friend's indoor soccer team. And in a freak accident, I was trying to block a shot, and this gentleman had a rocket ship of a shot, and it hit my hand and broke my hand. And so I was not able to do a lot of the things that I enjoy doing in my downtime, like, certain things at the gym. I was afraid to go trail running because I didn't want to fall on my hand, et cetera, et cetera. And so I decided to start writing. And there was this like random social media post from this gentleman who's like, "Oh, write a book in 30 days." And I was like, "Maybe some downtime, like, let's check it out, right?" And that's where it started. And it started out as just a therapeutic thing for me to kind of write my story and look at it through this new lens that I had gained with my healing process. And the more I started writing it, it became more and more cathartic for me. And I realized how much I had learned and how much I actually did hope to share that with other people. And so I had sent it to a couple friends to read, and they were like, you should really like put this out there. And I was like, nah. And like, no, you should put it out there. And I finally decided just to go for it. And so I thought if I could even help one person with my message, then all the work would be worth it. And so, yeah, I self-published, and it has offered me so many amazing opportunities to connect with people, and I'm so grateful for it.
That is amazing. And what a crazy story. Holy cow. I've never known someone to get their hand broken from a rocket ship soccer ball. I've heard of concussions, but never a broken hand. Holy cow. I'd be
Yeah.
terrified of getting kicked by that guy.
And I wasn't even the keeper. I wasn't even the
Oh,
goalie. I was just the defender. So yeah, that goes to tell you either how hard his shot was, or maybe I need some more calcium in my bones, one or the other.
well, that is amazing. Thank you so much. And you self-published. What was that like for you?
It was a really amazing learning experience, but it also really opened my eyes to the fact that there is no longer this like gatekeeping ability of these large publishing houses to prevent people from getting their own message out there. I could care less how many books I sell. It's not about the numbers for me. It was about me being able to bravely and courageously put my message out there and hope that you, like I said, if it even just helps one person find their way to health and healing and growth, then it's all worth it.
That's amazing, Erica. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. I know at this point people are listening and they're like, I need Erica as a mentor in my life. How can those people find you?
Great question. So I do have a website. It's called mindfulhealingmethod.com. That's where it kind of introduces a lot of the different things that I offer, whether that's my 90-day program, which is super transformative, focusing on a lot of the things we've talked about today, actually, those kind of beginning steps towards self-discovery, detaching from the expectations that you may have, um, kind of glommed onto through your life, whether that's, cultural, religious, from your parents, from your family, whomever, so that you can actually truly get to know your true self and live your life the way that you want to live it, and that, you don't lose yourself in that process. But yeah, they can check out my website there. That's really the main focus when it comes to this kind of transformative work and one-on-one coaching. So
So, well, Erica, thank you so much for your time. I again, I truly appreciate it. So, and I'll put all that stuff in the comment section for you. So, for those who are interested in checking out her website, you can just go down to the comments and see that there. I want to thank everyone for tuning in today and listening to this entire episode. Again, if you haven't already, I invite you to share this episode with someone that you know near and dear to your heart that could benefit from the messages and lessons shared by Erica today. Because again, she's a freaking rock star. Her story needs to be out there. And obviously, she is changing the lives of many. So again, thank you everyone for tuning in. If you're not already a member of the Wellness Center tribe, please make sure to like and subscribe to whatever platform you are on to make sure you get updated on all of the weekly episodes that we're releasing, sharing one story of resilience, one episode at a time. Again, thank you everyone for tuning in. If you want to become on my show, just understand that no story is too big and no name is too small. If you do have a story, I want to share it all. If you want to know more about what I do on a day-to-day basis, please check out the wellnesscenter.life, where I rejuvenate every cell in your body one session at a time. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you on the flip side. Peace out.